Hey folks, and welcome to another video of mine. I know I'm not showing my face, but this video is not about my face. In fact, it's about what I'm about to talk on or talk about. Now, if you are in the market and if you're seriously considering buying a device like a laptop or a PC or a new console for your gaming requirements, then this is exactly the video that you should watch before you finally make your purchase. Now, the reason why I say that is because I'm going to be talking about my experience of owning an Xbox Series S for almost a year now. I purchased this device last year in July, and this July it's going to complete like a year. Now, I'm going to go on to say that I may never even upgrade to an Xbox Series X this generation. Yeah, I know that's a bold statement, right? But I'm going to explain my reasons as to why I'm saying that. Now, apart from that, I would also recommend the Xbox Series S over any of those gaming laptops that are out there. Now, I wouldn't really exactly compare this to a PC because the PC is in a whole different league altogether, but I may kind of put in some subtle reasons as to why this may be a better option for your gaming needs especially, and how it topples the laptop or the requirement of owning a PC. So that's what this video is all about. So kindly stick around till the end of the video, and I hopefully will be able to explain my reasons in a very simple way, and I'll try to do that really fast. So with that said, let's get started, folks. All right, now let's start with your requirement of buying a laptop or a PC for your gaming needs. Now, of course, one of the reasons as to why you would consider buying a laptop is because of the portability, because you may want to carry that around, and you may also want to do something other than gaming on your laptop. That means you want to use it for productivity. But let me start with the first point that I spoke about, portability. Now, the Xbox Series S, in terms of the size and in terms of the portability aspect, is really compact, not that heavy, and you can really carry it along with you wherever you want to go. So from a portability perspective, it does really well. Now, I understand that you may not be able to do all the things that you can do on a laptop from the productivity perspective. Like, you can't open up Adobe Premiere, you can't open up something like a Photoshop, or you can't open up, let's say, Maya or 3D Max, etc. I understand that. But those devices, all right, that can actually operate with those softwares that I just laid out come at a whopping price, because to satisfy your productivity needs along with your gaming requirements, you may want to invest in a laptop which at least offers you a Core i5, let's say a hexa-core processor like a 10 Gen 10500H, or maybe an i7 like 10700 series, and if you want to match that up with a adequate graphical card, I think the bare minimum that you should look at in 2022 should at least be the RTX 3060. Now, considering those, you could say, options of the processor, of the graphical card, that config will cost you nothing short of at least $900. That's the bare minimum that it would cost you. Now, if you want to match that with a great display, I'm not even talking about a 4K display. I'm talking about, let's say, a good quality full HD 144 Hz display, or if you want to boost up that resolution, then you can even opt out for QHD displays. But here's the thing, when you finally want to upgrade to a QHD display, that cost of the bare minimum $900 may already jump over to $1,200 to $1,300. So here's the thing, the Xbox Series S just cost me $300. Now, that is an incredible price to value ratio. And if I try to compare this with a laptop, of course, I'm not going to be able to achieve the 112, 120 FPS on most of the titles, but it does offer me a fantastic 60 FPS experience coupled with my Samsung AU9070. So if you have a great monitor lying around, if you have a good television lying around, and if you pair this with a great television like the Samsung here, then you can, of course, have a steady 60 FPS performance. And you know what's really the great part about this device is that not only is it portable, not only is it compact so that you can keep it anywhere in your table or even carry it along with yourself in a bag or something, but it is super, super quiet. Now, when you buy a gaming laptop, you know that when the fans kick in, it gets noisy. And to a lot of people, that fan noise could be very irritating. It is intrusive and it takes away from that immersive experience. Now, even if I keep my mic really close to this device, the Xbox Series S is quiet. It's really quiet. So it's giving you that great performance with absolutely close to no sound. All right. Now the device may get a little warm, but it does not get to those temperatures where you would have, maybe a laptop or a PC and you need those extra fans or cooling systems to make sure that the temperatures are kept at a bare minimum so that you get the most out of your gaming laptop or your gaming PC. Now, of course, if I consider a gaming PC, then a gaming PC would also cost a lot more. I might run into the tune of, let's say, $1,500 if I want to really configure a great PC. That's the bare minimum, I would say. And that's a bare minimum, I would say, all right? Bare minimum. If I want a great PC, then maybe, $2,000, $2,200. And I'll have to pay that for, the graphical performance that I need. Of course, again, this is not achieving the 120 FPS, but let me show you something, all right? Let's take A Plague Tale Innocence as an example. Now, this particular game, and the reason why I want to talk about this game is because if you see the FPS counter here, I don't know if the camera is able to pick this up or not, but if you see the FPS counter here, then it's giving me close to 78, 79, and if I actually move further in the game, it can even touch 90s, all right? Now, that's because a game like this, or a game like Tales of Arise, they have unlocked frame rates. So, it's not just limited to 60 FPS on my Xbox Series S. And that is what is incredible. Now, the Xbox Series S also has VRR support and it has FreeSync. So, in the event that you have frame drops in any of the other games, not this game, because this game is pretty stable, it's really solid when it comes to the performance. But let's take Godfall as an example. Now, when I play Godfall, there can be frame drops. Now, the VRR has got you covered because it takes care of the screen tearing, it takes care of, artifacting, etc., and it's got you covered. So here, I just want to make a quick comment that I'm recording this video in 24 frames per second. So the 60 FPS goodness or whatever, the 90 FPS, you may not be able to experience this in this video, but let me tell you personally that this is absolutely smooth, all right? Now, the beauty is that I can go into the settings, and in the settings, if you take a look at this, I have actually kept my resolution at 1080p. So although it is capable of going up to 4K because it upscales your games over to 4K if you have a 4K television to go along with it. But I chose to keep this at 1080p because I wanted the 120 Hz refresh rate. And it makes a significant difference in a lot of games. For instance, Resident Evil Village. All right. Now let me head over to Resident Evil Village. Now this game, when I played this game with the ray tracing option on, it had a lot of frame drops. And when I played it with the ray tracing mode on, but at 1080p, it gave me close to 60 FPS. Yes, even Resident Evil with ray tracing on gave me close to 60 FPS. Now I understand that a gaming laptop or a gaming PC will give you ray tracing, will give you those high FPS, but at what cost? At almost 3 to 4 times the money. So if you want a device which can give you this solid performance at just $300, it is just such a fantastic device. And let me show you an example here. As far as the frame rates go, if you take a look at it, again, it's giving me those high frame rates. You see that? Now this means that even the frame rates in this with the ray tracing on, and look at how beautiful this game looks. I kid you not. If you have an opportunity to take a look at it from up close, you will appreciate the beauty. You will appreciate how good this looks on the Xbox Series S. It's incredible, and it was even crossing 100 FPS. You see that? Absolutely mind-blowing. And that is with ray tracing on. And this is the mode that I would say you should play this game on your Xbox Series S. So if you want ray tracing on it, just switch over to 120 Hz. If your monitor or if your television is capable of it, then this is definitely that mode that you should play it on. Now, apologies, I kind of started recording this video in 24 FPS. So again, you will not be able to see the difference, maybe, but I kid you not, this is smooth, all right? So that's one of the other reasons as to why I love the Xbox Series S. Let me go back to the home screen. So even though this is not a laptop or a PC which costs $1,200, $1,500, $2,000, $2,400, but this gives me 60 FPS, solid performance on games like Resident Evil, on games like A Plague Tale Innocence, on games like Gears. When it comes to multiplayer, I actually get 120 FPS from this. And there are a lot of titles. The list of those games you can see online as well. It's readily available. I'll try to put it up in the description box as well. But there are a lot of titles which actually can be played at 120 FPS. Now, of course, you can't play that in 4K. And that brings me to Xbox Series X, because we're talking about 4K, right? So let me jump on to the wagon where I talk about the Xbox Series S in comparison to the Xbox Series X and why I may never switch to an Xbox Series X. So now that I've covered the reasons as to why I still consider this to be so much better in terms of price to value ratio over a laptop or a PC, let me jump on to the Xbox Series X comparison. Xbox Series X comparison, and why I'm saying such a strong statement that I may never consider upgrading to an Xbox Series X because of my Xbox Series S, now that I've had it for over a year. Now, I've also started recording this in 60 FPS now, because this is the second part of the video, and I'll just show you, as to what kind of an impact does it make in terms of smoothness. Now, I don't know if you can actually pick this up on the camera, but this is silky smooth, guys. I mean, the 60 FPS that it gives me, now I know it's saying 119 FPS here, but it's a 60 FPS, a solid 60 FPS for that, all right? And it is super, super smooth. It is so smooth, guys. And that is one of the other reasons as to why I love the Xbox Series S. Now, comparing it with an Xbox Series X, I know that the Xbox Series X advertises itself as a console which can do 4K, but here's the thing. On games where it actually achieves 120 FPS, most of the games do not run 120 FPS 4K. Most of the games today run at 120 FPS either in 1440p or in 1080p. Now, the Xbox Series S can also do 120 FPS, of course not at 4K or 1440p. For most of it, it does that at 1080p, but it does a solid 60 FPS in a lot of titles. Now here it's doing a 60 FPS, and you can see the smoothness as to how smooth this is in 60 FPS. It's really smooth, guys. I mean, it's incredible as to how smooth this is. Now, going back to a game like A Plague Tale Innocence again, quick resume is in full effect. Again, take a look at the same game. Now, the last section was in 24 FPS, but now this is in 60 FPS. I'm recording this in 60 FPS, that is. And you can see the frame rates at the bottom as to how much it's showing at the bottom, the FPS counter, that is. And let me now quickly switch over to Resident Evil. And here I have the quick resume again. Quick resume is really handy if you want to switch between games. I'm not the kind of person who actually switches, between games. But here, just take a look at it. I mean, it is fantastic. It is super smooth. Again, you're getting even more than, you could say, 100 FPS in some cases. That's how smooth this is. Yeah? Oh, this game looks so good. I mean, it looks incredible. Ooh. Okay, let's get out of there. I got carried away. A little carried away, you could say. So, why not an Xbox Series X for me? Now, first of all, for most of the games that I play, I get a solid 60 FPS on this. Now, apart from that, if you take a close look at the user interface, it is the same user interface that you will get on the Xbox Series X. Now, as far as the game library goes, especially if I consider Game Pass, I get the same games that I would get on the Xbox Series X. So there is no exclusivity factor when it comes to the Xbox Series X. Now, the Xbox Series S, just like the Xbox Series X, can also run games with the FPS boost. And this game, Deus Ex, that I was playing, was with the FPS boost on. And with that, the entire, you could say, visual quality of the game changes completely. Now, personally, let me share with you an experience of mine that prior to getting my Xbox Series S, I always was in the favor of higher resolution, because prior to this I had a PlayStation 4 Pro. So I was the kind of guy who had this impression that it had to be great resolution. But trust me, this tiny little device, the Xbox Series S, changed my opinion. Now, I've had this for almost a year now, and I even have a PlayStation 5, by the way. But if I compare this with my PlayStation 5, I actually found myself playing more on the Xbox Series S than on the PlayStation 5. Now, especially for games which are older, titles like Deus Ex or titles which have that FPS boost, because it simply makes those games look so much better. So even a person like me who prefers resolution, if a person like me can actually have a change of heart, then imagine the kind of impact that this device has had on me, because this runs those games, those old games, and even some of these next gen games at a solid 60 FPS. Solid. I mean, most of the games would not even have frame drops. That's how good this device is. All right. So if you've got a television, most of the TVs, they don't do 120 FPS, but I fortunately have the Samsung AU9070, which is actually capable of doing 120 Hz. And trust me, even if I have to compare this with my PlayStation 5, some of the titles which claim to do 120 FPS, now with those updates to Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, and even games like Uncharted as an example, with those updates, the PlayStation 5 also does 120 Hz, but even the PlayStation 5 does them at 1080p. So here, in most of the games, as you saw, I was getting 120 FPS almost in some of the games, and that's on the Xbox Series S. So from that perspective, I don't really see a need to really upgrade to an Xbox Series X. Now, I play my games from a distance of 7 feet. My television is 43 inches. So just for reference, I'm telling you the distance so that you get an idea. So at that distance of 7 to 8 feet maybe, I can't see much of a difference even in terms of resolution when it comes to the Xbox Series S. And even if I compare it to my PlayStation 5, the differences are so subtle that unless I come really close like this, like pixel peep, I won't be able to see those pixelated edges or those jaggies or any kind of an aliasing, you could say, impact. So that's why I would say, from the price to value ratio, because the Xbox Series X, first of all, it's so difficult to get even in 2022. Number two, it's so expensive here in India especially. And at that price point, I don't think I really see it as a value for money device. Now, of course, there are going to be people from the camp where they say that, the resolution is really, really important for them. And I totally understand, different strokes for different folks. But personally, I have actually changed my opinion on resolution coming from a PlayStation 4 Pro, having a PS5 as well, and then comparing it to the Xbox Series S. And I kid you not, this is great value for money device, guys. So your game library is the same, your Game Pass Ultimate has the same games, you have the FPS boost on this as well, the UI is the same as well, and games look really, really good. Now, the one thing where I think the Xbox Series S falls short is in the section of internal storage. Now, it only gives you 364 GB approximately of internal storage, and to some people that may be a big issue, and I can totally understand that. But let me ask you another question. How many games do you play simultaneously at the same time? Now, I have stored 9 Xbox Series X or S exclusive games on my internal storage, and I have 8.5 GB left. But these are 9 titles. Now, personally, I don't play more than 3 titles at one time. And for my needs, it's been good enough. So I can have 9 titles here, and if I really want to play any of the older titles where I'm not required to play them off the internal storage, because X and S games, they have to be stored on the internal storage for you to play them, unless they are Xbox Gen 9 aware games. I've made a separate video on that, so you can take a look at it on my channel. Now, with this external storage, an external hard drive or an external SSD, you can connect an external storage and play all these games, the older titles, not the XS exclusive, on your Xbox Series S with an external storage. Now, you can do the same on the Xbox Series X, but the Xbox Series X obviously has the benefit of having extra storage. So this is one area where, yeah, I wouldn't deny that the Xbox Series S falls short, but again, one really has to ask himself or herself that question as to how many games do you simultaneously play at the same time. Now, the quick resume works even here. It works on the Xbox Series X as well. So from a user experience perspective, apart from the resolution is the only thing which sets the Xbox Series X apart. Apart from the resolution, and apart from, maybe extra frame rates in some of the titles, for most of the titles, you have the Xbox Series S performing so well, and that's why I love the Xbox Series S. That's why it's one of my favorite go-to consoles now. I have a PlayStation 4 Pro, I have the older Xbox One, I have my PlayStation 5 as well. But let me tell you that this still is very close to my heart. And I've just shared my experience as to why, for my gaming requirements, I can confidently rely on the Xbox Series S instead of buying an expensive laptop or a PC, or even buying the more expensive Xbox Series X. But these are my personal reasons. I know that some of you may not agree with me, and that's absolutely fine. If you don't, I would love to hear about your reasons as to why you don't agree with me, because some of the best conversations that I've had are with people who have actually disagreed with me. As long as the conversation is rooted in love, in respect, then I would love to have those conversations with you through the comment section. So please comment away. In fact, your comments, they let my channel grow as well. So I really appreciate your love, your support, and your comments. Keep them coming. Now, that's it for this video, folks. So it's a wrap for this one. And before going, if you've liked the content, then do hit that like and subscribe button, and also that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos. Now, with that said, I'll see you lovely folks in my next video. And until that time, I'll say take care, stay safe, happy gaming, and may God bless you all.